Okay, this is wrapping up. This is part 4 of my interview with Robert Drysdale about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as self-defense, the pros and the cons. The first 2 episodes, we really went in depth on the self-defense side. The third one, we talked a little bit about the history of Jiu-Jitsu, and we were just getting to the point to where we're talking about the inception, how it really birthed the UFC. In this conversation, we really talk about that. We talk about the early days and what it proved, and why it was, such a seminal event, and the place that jiu-jitsu held in that event, and why it's important. This wraps up kind of everything that I wanted to do. We've talked about in other videos. I've talked about the challenges of ground fighting. In this interview, we talked about that with Robert from his perspective, and now we got to learn a little bit about the unique history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and some of the controversies of him trying to get that information out. So again, please support Robert. Please make sure you get a copy of his book, Opening the Closed Guard. And then Closed Guard, the actual documentary, should be coming out very soon. We will announce it as soon as I know it's out there and tell you what platform. But I'm looking very forward to seeing it. Okay. So again, for those of you, if you waited till part 4 to get in this and you don't know who Robert is, we've gone over that in part 1. One of the few guys to be a double champion, the most prestigious Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championships, great MMA fighter. He's worked with some of the top people in the industry, so he knows all aspects of combat sports and how they all come together. Again, he's an author, and he's just an intelligent guy, and he's really, really fun to talk to. So I think you're going to really like the closing of this interview. Again, when you get a chance, give me some comments on what you thought about, Robert's portrayal of jiu-jitsu in this. I'd really like to hear what you think about it. But let's jump right into part 4.
Combat.
Yeah, but the whole idea of it being born, in the Vale Tudo tradition, and then taking that and then creating the UFC, the original, I loved the concept of the original UFC, where you earned your way to get that fight. That was a hell of a, I get it, it's brutal, I get there's a lot of controversy about it, but it truly was. Those early ones were really interesting from a tenacity standpoint. Yeah. You saw some incredible, just performances that you don't see. I understand in order for them to do what they wanted to do, that they had to, they had to alter and get weight classes and do all that. I totally understand that, but from a purist standpoint.
Oh yeah, I'm with you.
It was amazing.
It was incredible.
Just amazing.
I am more entertained by Royce Gracie than I am by Francis Ngannou. And I understand Francis would kill Royce Gracie in a fight. Royce in his prime wouldn't last around with Francis Ngannou. Right. I get that. But I don't think it's nearly as interesting. Because that was the moment, that's when the reality check hit. Like, there's more to fighting than just like fancy kicks.
People were shocked. Like, they couldn't believe this relatively skinny guy, in a traditional gi, as far as they thought, traditional, judo type gi, was able to do what he was able to do.
He's from Brazil. Doesn't make sense.
Yes.
You think from Japan.
Brazil, before that, but yeah, Brazil wasn't known as.
It wasn't on the map.
It was just not something. We were just ignorant about it. There's nothing. I've never seen any change. I've never seen what it's like, and what the positive things that it's done for military units, for law enforcement units, the people that take up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, at least they're training, and I don't mean that in a denigrating way. What I mean is, prior to that, these guys weren't doing a lot of hands-on training, when it came to hand-to-hand combat, when it came to everything. Now they're regularly training, they're regularly rolling, they're regularly doing stuff, they feel comfortable. To me, it's just tremendous that they're able to do that, and I give BJJ huge credit for that.
No, they were. And what's most remarkable in this whole story, and that's just something that they never give themselves credit for. It's like they get mad when I say that Hilo didn't invent, revolutionize the ground, because he didn't. The Japanese were much better than him. In fact, we have many Japanese who were much better grapplers than him. But what they did, imagine you have a business, right? And for let's say 1930 to 1990, 60 years, it's not really pulling in a profit. Right? You're running that business and you're working that business nonstop. And you're at it and you believe in it. 60 years, man. No one was paying attention to it. You think there are a lot of people practicing jiu-jitsu in Brazil? No one even knew what it was. That's a lie. They had the biggest tournament in Rio de Janeiro had 200 competitors before Royce. And that's Rio. Outside of Rio, no one ever heard of the Gracie family, right? And they stuck to their way of doing things. Now that's truly incredible. Imagine you have this idea and you stick to it for 60 years and you hand it out to your children and they hand it out to their children. It's a family tradition, but no one cares. Yeah. Just you and your family and half a dozen other people. It's incredible when you think about it, right? And then they give us the UFC. Well, thank you. Like I couldn't be more thankful. But with that being said, they didn't do it alone. Right. They didn't invent anything. Like, you got to be fair here. Like, you got to be fair to the Japanese, right? The Japanese were light years ahead of them, technically. You can't even begin to compare, right? But the Japanese let it go. They didn't think it was important. They dropped the ground. They dropped the self-defense. They stuck to their judo, their Olympic style, right? And that became the mainstream judo. And they neglected it, and that's the reality of it. And the Gracie family didn't. They kept it alive. So that's the conclusion from the book and the documentary, basically.
When do you think, I know it's a question you probably can't answer, when do you think we might be able to see the movie?
We're hoping this year, but I've said that last year, the year before that as well. Like, the truth of the matter is, it's the biggest problem has been compacting 140 years of history into 90 minutes. Right. That is a huge challenge, and it's because what do you leave out, right? If I'm introducing 5 new characters, I can't just mention their names. I got to say who they are and why they're important. And I can't do that in less than 5 minutes. Right. And that's just for one character, right? You got to give them a background. If I'm going to destroy a myth, well, I have to talk about the myth first, because I can't assume that the audience knows what the myth is. Right. So I have to present a myth, and then I have to construe it. You see, like, all these things are very tight. And how do you talk about luta livre and catch wrestling and the birth of Vale Tudo and all these characters, all these moments? And it's incredibly difficult. Yeah. That being said, we're making progress. Like, it's going to happen. But I think that the main concern now is not, I know there's a lot of people in a hurry to watch it. We want something that's archival. I would like this something to be that 100 years from now, people are still referencing this, because the very first MMA fighters in the world, the very first jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world, we interviewed. We've lost 5 of them since we finished filming, because they're all in their 90s. Wow. So we caught them right before they went, man. Wow. So you can't redo it. What we did, you cannot redo because they're gone. That's awesome. So because of that, we understand the value and the importance of what we're doing. We're talking about the birth of MMA and jiu-jitsu here, right? So it is important work. So we want it to be archival and reference for future generations to understand, because most people are not going to read the books, but they'll watch a 90-minute film. So we have that responsibility of delivering a good quality product and not doing it in a rush.
Well, that's, I wish you the best on that, and I really hope we get to see it within the year. But I would tell everybody, get the book. The book is amazing. The book covers this amazing history. There was so much that I didn't know, and I've actually read a couple of books on the history of jiu-jitsu. The research is great. You're honest as hell on this. You're just very straightforward, and it's a rare thing, because you get that. You get the idea that you're really putting out a true history, and I think it's huge for people. And also, I would highly encourage you guys to check out. Robert's got a lot of information. Check out his approach to training, especially, my children actually were in your kids program for a while before COVID, and we're hoping to get them all back in now. It's just been terrible what it's done to kids and training and everything. But I would highly encourage it, and if you're coming to Vegas, you got to check out the studio. It's just amazing. All the best, my friend.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Anytime.
Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed that 4-part series with Robert. I knew it was going to be an interesting interview, but I think the whole idea of talking about the self-defense aspect of jiu-jitsu, the pros and cons, was really, really important. And then I think it's also just as important to do the history that we did in these last 2 segments. It truly is amazing. A country that was not known for combat sports, was not known to have proficient world-class fighters, comes out of nowhere essentially and dominates and completely changes the way people look at combat sports. I mean, it's a pretty cool history. There are those of you that'll, I don't like jiu-jitsu. It's not, good for multi-attacker scenarios, all those other stuff. Listen, regardless of what you're saying, it dominates right now. BJJ dominates just about every aspect of law enforcement, military, community. I mean, the community of jiu-jitsu is just incredible with these guys, and they have a lot of fun. I think we covered that pretty well, so you can understand the phenomenon of jiu-jitsu and then take it in. If you want to try it out, now you know a little bit about it. But I really enjoyed it. Again, I'm fascinated by the history of combat sports and the characters that come out. And Robert really did a great job of putting that all together in his book. So I hope you take advantage of that. I hope you get the book. I hope you watch his documentary. And then please, any questions or follow-ups that you want, please send them in, and we will look at having Robert back on to answer any of those. So until next time, thanks very much.